So I had a request to do some videos on child training, and this is because some people weren't raised in Christian homes and don't even have an understanding of the biblical philosophy for child training. And other times people were raised in Christian homes, but they just despise the way that their parents raised them. So today I want to give you 7 basic rules for your littles, the ones that are between around crawlers and 3 and 4 and 5 years of age. I'm just going to give you a general disclaimer. These are not sin issues. The only sin a child generally does is children obey your parents and the Lord, for this is right. And so whatever rule you set, that's what they should obey. And I'm going to give you what worked in my home, but you might not be the same type of person I am and have the same priorities, and so don't feel like you have to do it this way. I'm just going to tell you what worked for me. I have 5 children, ages 5 through 13, and I honestly believe they're pretty well behaved. They're certainly obedient. We're all a work in progress, but I am happy where they are. I'm not continually butting heads with my children. But the emphasis during this season of your child's life, the goal is for them to submit to your will over theirs. And when I say submit, I mean from their heart. A sure, why not attitude versus constantly being resistant and pushing you. As your child begins to have solid foods more, you will have to face the problem of them throwing foods, smearing foods, and throwing their sippy cup on the floor, and just in general being a complete disaster, something that will exhaust you and you're going to have to clean up. And so you have to gauge for yourself, what are you willing to deal with and what are you not willing to deal with? Is this going to be a game? Oh, she threw her cup on the floor again. Ha ha ha. Uh-oh. And then she's like, this is so fun. Chuck the cup on the floor again. Uh-oh. And then after the 15th time, you're like, if you do that again, you are in big trouble. So, as child training is proactive rather than reactive, it's good. Here are some tips to help you to have as peaceful of a time as possible when eating with your child. It is good to have them to learn how to sit in their chair and stay in their chair while eating. Because, first of all, they actually need to finish their food. Second of all, you don't want to have to keep chasing them down. Third, as they get older, just learning how to sit and stay in their chair is so beneficial for Sunday school and junior church and school down the road. And if you're at a doctor's office, these are all important skills that they need to learn. We started out with a booster seat that was in our dining room chair, and I did not use the high chair or the booster seat as a babysitter. I didn't just sit them in there and give them all sorts of snacks just so that they could sit there while I was distracted doing something else. What I did is that when we sat down to eat, they sat down with us. And then when we got up to eat, and then when we were done and got up, then they got up also. And as they got bigger and they could take the tray off, then they would push next to the table. And it's the same thing. When we sat down to eat, they sat down with us. And there was a strap. And then as they became more mature, then their physical restrictions became less and less until they understood, okay, this is what we do. This is dinner time. This is lunchtime. We sit down in our chair. We eat our food. We don't throw our food or our cups. And then when we're done, we clean up and we move on. And so a high chair or a booster seat at the table is there for eating. It's not a constraining device. But also, when I say that it's there for eating, that is what it's there for. So when you feed your child, what I did as I had more and more children, I found that it was just as easy to, when we sat them down at the table, to cut up little bits of food and they ate what we ate. And they weren't allowed to throw it on the floor because that was their meal. And when they were very young, I would give them one bite and monitor it to make sure that they were choking or anything like that. And then I'd give them the next bite. And as, again, their skills and their And again, as their skills and responsibility grew, I would give them a little bit more food, but I didn't just heap all this food on their plate or their tray so that they could play in it. It becomes disgusting, and then the temptation to throw the food is there. But if I gave them a piece of food and they were obstinate or they did throw it, then you would have your correction, which I'll talk about in the next video, which is discipline and follow through and those methods and principles. In this one, I'm just trying to teach you how to train them. But what I didn't do was provide an environment that would encourage behaviors that I didn't want in the long run. I would give them the food, say this is your food that you can eat, and I knew that they understood this, and if they were not going to eat what I gave them, I didn't give them alternate foods. If I gave them a little bit of green beans, they couldn't say, I'd say, no, this is what we're eating, and they would have to eat a little bit of it, maybe not the whole thing if they hated it, but they would have to eat, and I would not reward their obstinance by providing them their favorite foods, because that just develops bad habits and it develops that heart of disobedience within them. So just a recap of eating, we would sit down at the table with our child, give them appropriate amounts of food for their age and responsibility level. They would eat it. They weren't allowed to throw it on the floor. They weren't allowed to throw their sippy cup on the floor. It was never a game, and they were required to eat what we gave them and stay seated until the meal was done. Number 2, going to bed. The favorite time of the day when you have a break. But it is not a break if your child doesn't stay in bed. This becomes more of an issue as the crib, as they are growing out of their crib, and maybe they're going to want to crawl or climb, and there's safety hazards, or you put them in a toddler bed and they're just required to obey. What I would encourage you to do at this stage is to really figure out, what do you want? You know, are you okay if they have an hour long, okay, honey, we're going to go to bed, it's 8 o'clock, but really, you know, you don't want them to go to sleep until 9 o'clock? If that's a game that you want to play and waste your hour, that's on you. But for me, I just wanted to go to bed. And I had a set bedtime, and I knew that I wanted to be alone with my husband afterwards, for just the peace and quiet and being able to talk and be with an adult. And so if I said it's time to go to bed and they said, hey, can I come and be with you and sit on your bed or read a book with you? And I was like, nope. I said go to bed. And one of the things, my stepfather, we visited my mother's house, and he said what was amazing to him was that I had all 5 kids and they all had to sleep in random places in their little apartment. And he said the thing that was most impressive was that there was a bedtime and it was in a new environment, and yet when I said, okay, it's time to go to bed, they all just went to sleep. So I'm telling you, it works. And you can have a bedtime routine if you want a bedtime routine. It might get lesser and lesser as you have more kids, and that's fine also. That's just your personal preference. But what is important is that when you say something, they obey. Now, if you aren't mentally prepared to follow through in this issue of bedtime, if you just feel uncertain as if this is a fight that you should, you know, if this is a hard line that you should draw, then by all means don't draw that line, because follow through and consistency is far more important than a bedtime. What they need to understand is that your word means something. And so if in this case you don't want to set that, then don't set it. But if you do, you need to follow through. And so if you say, all right, it's time to go to bed, and that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to fall asleep. You cannot force a child to fall asleep. But what you can tell them to do is to stay in the crib, or not to climb on the crib, or to stay in their bed with their legs up. You can't stop a child from crying. That's usually pretty fruitless. But there are some things that you can do that will encourage them to fall asleep. You can have a night light, you can turn the light off and you say, okay, don't turn the light on, you stay in bed, no jumping, things like that, and then follow through with a consequence. Oh goodness. Number 3, come here or go there. This one's hard because you're so tired, and you say, come here, and then your child decides at this random moment that they aren't actually going to come here, and it's the worst. So what I would encourage you to do is, number 1, never say come here if you're not willing to stand up and enforce it, because they're just gonna think you're a joke. If you say come here and then your child doesn't, and worse, you stand up and they run away. Awesome! But every child's gonna try, they're gonna try. And so what do? You go and you provide whatever it is your consequence is for their direct disobedience. And this is important. You do not bring them to you physically. You put them right back where they were when you gave them the command. And you go back to where you were when you gave the command. And then you say, come here. And oh, I so hope that your child will obey. But sometimes they don't. I remember one time my child, I said, okay, and they were probably, 15 months. And I said, come on, let's go to lunch. And they literally backed up as far as they could against the wall. And I thought, why? We're going to lunch. Lunch is a happy thing. Why are you going to do this now? And I went through what I'm telling you for about 45 minutes. I would have a consequence. I set perimeters and I said, okay, buddy, if you don't do this, then this is what's going to happen. So I want you to come here. And they just put themselves right back where they wanted to be. And the consequence was given. And then I put them where this whole thing started. And I said, okay, let's try this again, bud. And no, I don't know why. Why do kids do this? But they do. And so you just have to stick at it and say, okay, all right, these are the consequences. Doesn't mean I don't love you, but this is just the way that it is. And then after that, you put them in that same spot over and over until they obey. And you know what? When they obey, it should be fireworks and excitement because they obeyed and their heart gave in to your will. You weren't a bully. You didn't lose your patience and say, get over here, we're going to lunch now, and grab them by the arm and drag them into the room so angry and shove that tray onto their thing and just be mad at them and fuming while you're giving them their food. No, you are the adult. You should take the time. Lunch is not as important as your child's heart. Take the time. Be calm. Be pleasant. Be loving. Be diligent to follow through. Number 4, be proactive in your safety training. I had child locks for one thing, and that was our cleaning cabinet, because I just was afraid. I was just afraid. But other things like your pantry or your pots and pans, those aren't really a danger to your child, and so you can use those as training opportunities to get to their heart. But I want to tell you, I'm gonna read a list of things that I would go out of my way and walk my child through different rooms and say, once they started crawling and walking, because they are really so sneaky and so fast. And so I would walk them through and say, okay, now these are don't touch. And they understand that. So here are the things that I proactively would go through with them that they don't touch. The washer and the dryer, outlets, the knife drawer, the toilet lid, scissors, the oven and the stove, a hot water faucet in your bathroom, because they can get that pretty hot, and animals faces and animals' tails, so that they can understand that these are dangerous things. And then you are aware that these are dangerous things, and if you see them heading in that direction, you can provide a consequence and a reminder to them that these are dangerous to don't touch. The second thing that I would encourage you to teach them is don't climb. There are some things that you might not think about until they do it, and it can be so heart-wrenching to watch your child get hurt. Don't climb bunk beds, tables, ladders, bookshelves, dressers, stair railings, and counters. That should be self-explanatory. Obviously you use your own discernment if you have other things in your house, but if you teach them to not climb, you're not going to face the time when you walk in the room and they're on the table or teetering, and then boom, there they go. And dressers, you would think that a dresser would be heavy enough to keep them from pulling it down, but I've just heard so many stories, and just be cautious. That little baby and that little baby's head. Be careful. Number 5, cleanliness. Cleanliness is a battle from the moment they're born until they leave. I hate messes. If there was a top 10 thing that I say as a parent, for sure I hate messes would be one of them. And yet, you know, there's so many memes about children, and having children is like, you know, shoveling the snow in the middle of a snowstorm. It's just, but still, kids can create a tremendous mess, especially little kids. They just, oh goodness gracious, the things that they can do in such a quick amount of time. I think of baby powder, and you know, oh, they think it's so exciting, and then it goes everywhere. You can never clean it up. So messes, you can teach them what to touch and what not to touch. And then you're aware, and I'm just going to give you a list of common things that moms learn from experience that, oh, I really wished I would have told them not to touch that. Okay, not saying you're a bad mom if you forget. I'm just telling you, it really, really stinks to have to clean it all up. It's awful. All right, don't touch. There are craft things, like if you have a craft cabinet, don't let your kid go in there, and teach them that pencils and paper and markers and stickers, they all belong together. That paints, they only go on paper. Stickers, they only go on paper. You know what they don't go on? And then you walk through all of the things. Do stickers go on dressers? No! Do markers write on walls? Absolutely not. We don't do that. Do Sharpie markers, do they go on your couch? Nope. So walk through those things. Do scissors. Do scissors cut hair? No, they only cut paper. Here's your friend paper. Let's look at paper. What is paper good for? All of this. Cooking. Oils and spices and sugar and flour and all of the things that have excellent texture, and mommy works with them all the time. You take your kid into your pantry and you say, mommy, she cooks with these, but these are don't touch. Don't touch the oils. Don't touch the spices. Don't pour them all into the pan and into the bowl and mix them all up. And then say, if you want to cook with me, you can be mommy's cooking buddy, and this is when you can touch. And that will save you so much hassle, because you already, number one, taught them not to climb in the pantry, and now you're teaching them don't mess with the stuff in the pantry. And so many things are just averted by those two things. Baby supplies and bath and shower supplies. Those are other things that you go through that they are used to seeing you doing, and they are going to love that you do it, and they are also going to want to be awesome like you. So why would they not take the shampoo and squirt it and fill the bathtub? Why would they not? That's so exciting. It creates bubbles. like I said, baby powder. Why would you not squeeze the thing and watch it go poof, poof, poof? It's exciting. Teach your child what the baby supplies and the shower supplies are, and that those are mommy's and those are don't touch. Lastly, you have those cleaning supplies, and those are a danger. And even if you do have a child lock, it doesn't mean that it's always going to click and engage in the right way. So do teach your child. These are bad, these are poison, these can hurt you, these can kill you. Don't touch. These are not for drinking. It might look like it's Mountain Dew. It's not Mountain Dew. It might look like, just go through it. It's really, really important to teach them those boundaries. Don't just assume that those safety locks are going to protect your child, because for obvious reasons. Take the extra effort. These are the major don't touch scenarios. Number 6. Sitting still with quiet toys. And when I say quiet toys, I don't mean screens. There we go. I mean quiet toys to teach them self-control. And there are so many reasons for this, but it's first of all to teach them self-control, and also because you are going to go places where they need to be still and quiet, and you're not chasing them around. I think of doctor's appointments, in your shopping cart, going to church, doing your devotions on the couch with your little kids, or if you have visitors over, you need to teach them how to just chill and not constantly be mommy, 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 mommy. And they need to learn how to obey. And a veteran mom, she taught me this when I was a young mom, and it was splendid. She just talked about blanket time, and so I had, probably like a 4 or 5 foot square blanket, and I would sit them on that with some quieter toys, and I would just say, okay, sit and play. And then I set the timer for 5 minutes, and then maybe after a week, I knew that they could go for 5 minutes, and then I would progressively just build up to probably no more than 20 minutes, because it's kind of not kind to just force your child to stay there for an extended period of time. But 20 minutes is pretty, standard of what you might have to do at a doctor's office or in the shopping cart. So just understand this is preparing them for life, and it's not harsh, and it is within their capacity. I'm saying like probably 15 months and more, maybe younger, depending on depending on the child. But just know your child and try to establish a rhythm and some training in that area. Number 7, we've made it to the end. This is my favorite, whining. Whining is so difficult with that first child. It's not as difficult with the next children because they've already learned by watching the other siblings what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. But that first child is like the center of attention, has nobody to compete with, and so what they do is, I don't like that. I don't like that, Mom. Oh, that word is not allowed in my house. I just don't respond to the word Mom. It's no. But I had to develop that resistance of, if they're whining, they don't get what they want. And another mom, she said that, no, it was a daughter who said her mom did this and it really, really worked for her. If she came up to her mom and was, she would say, oh, I'm sorry, could you repeat that? I couldn't quite understand you because you were whining. Yeah. Yes, that is how you deal with whining. Whiners don't get what they want. If they talk to you respectfully, and if they come to you respectfully, they come, Mom, 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 Mom. No. Because multiply that times however many children you have. Don't let people whine. Don't let children whine. It's the worstest. Worst. noticed? No, that's not a word. So there you have it. Those are the 7 major areas that you are probably going to have to deal with. And all these do is keep your home running decently and in order. That's all. Because you need a little sanity. That's it for today. Have a great day.